Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Two Sides of the Same Convo with your host. I'm Dennis Everett and my co-host, Mike Boucher.
What's up?
I brought a longtime friend, Nick. This is your first time actually in the office.
Yes, sir.
All right, what are your reactions? Because you know me from...
It's beautiful, man. Great job. Looks good.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of in an awkward space because this is a test dialogue or a test conversation. Me and Nick have been friends for a long time, and he's been there for me in my life when no one else was in my life, and I appreciate that. So that's kind of the foundation of our relationship. But we're also navigating a world. We both have large families. We both property owners, and our beliefs kind of, like most people, our beliefs have challenged or caused friction in our relationship. I would say me, maybe more so than him, in the sense where I don't think you've ever even thought about us not being friends.
No, it's never crossed my mind.
Right. I got more irritated and kind of, lashed out, and we kind of had this behind the scenes friction, but we have so many friends that have just only known us to be brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of, I would say, unimaginable to them.
It was unimaginable to me as well.
Well, there's that as well. But about a week or two ago, we met. I reached out. Well, I can't remember how it happened. We both reached out to each other through the times, and we just said, you know what, we're going to push through this.
Yeah.
So pushing through doesn't mean, for both of us, I think it doesn't mean ignoring who we are and what we believe. So the idea, which we've talked about a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
was coming in together and kind of having these dialogues to share publicly. And I already had this podcast going.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to Mike, which there's some history there.
Yep, there's a little bit. Yep.
We'll get into that history to have this dialogue. So I want to just be, because this is about organic. None of this is ever performative. We just kind of come and we just talk the way we are. So I just want to be transparent. I'm a little hesitant because my mindset is I never want to cause harm outside of our relationship that I can't control. So I'm asking anyone that might be watching this to trust our process and be with us on this journey. Don't use it as a place to light a match. Because the whole intent of this is believing that, through the freedoms we have, through tough conversations, we can move forward together at the speed of whatever the speed is at a fragile pace, to a better place where it's rooted in love.
I think that my goal isn't to not only not set a match, but is to try to extinguish some fires through our conversation and our dialogue. The fact that we've been considered each other brothers for the better part of 30 some odd years. The fact that you and I come from a unique place where there was a lot of diversity and we grew up together as brothers. And then we had our own dispute, only stands to reason that people that don't know each other or didn't have that sort of relationship would have that same dispute, only much more elevated than you and I. And to be honest, you and I came very close to physical confrontation, and we're brothers. We came close to a physical confrontation over things that were in neither one of our control. So I think that it's our duty to try to come together and show the rest of the world that there's an ability to sit down and have a dialogue with people that have a difference of opinion with you, without it ruining relationships and without it turning into violence or anger or I understand frustration and angst from the fact that people may have differences of opinions, but for it to go further than that, I think that it's our job to use our relationship to try to see if we can quell some fires and maybe show other people in our group of friends and family, that there is an ability to sit down and have a dialogue and get to know the other person's side of the story and know that there's no malice in the opinion.
Can you fix that light? Sorry, it's just bothering me.
Oh yeah.
So I was just going to say that I'm sort of like that role that you were describing of kind of like the audience seeing everyone or seeing this conversation kind of play out and seeing that we can have civil discourse and be respectful and hopefully come out better people at the end of this. So that's kind of like, that's how I see myself in this role.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the three of us are all mutual friends. Like we have connections with each other, with other people. So that also kind of plays into this. I know like the two of you have like a shared history because of where you grew up in proximity. I think I grew up not too far from you guys, so I don't think our worlds are that different, but we'll probably figure that out in conversation. I guess one of the things that I need to understand, like I said, kind of playing this role as the audience, I guess briefly, do you want to discuss kind of like the dispute where, because as I understand, you were saying you guys have been basically brothers for like 30 years. So what got you to that point? You're like, oh, we're about to fight.
I mean, you want to go first? I could go first.
I think that you should go first because I didn't have the.
Yeah, so there's certain parts I think I will. No, I guess not. I mean, I could say everything. So, and can I start from the conflict? So I don't think I could start from the conflict because people wouldn't understand. It would look like I'm just some rage lunatic. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so like where I grew up, the semblance of stability in my life came from my grandfather's house.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone outside of my grandfather was a place that I was harmed, or I grew up in foster care. My mother would have, my mother's passed on, but she would have months of sobriety that would eventually decline.
Mm-hmm.
And in the immediate reaction, usually I would be at my grandfather's house while they were trying to find placement for me. So whenever that happened, the first person I met was a brother by the name of Jesse Fontaine. He was right across the Merrimack Valley, and I used to go over there, and we got this relationship. I used to stay at his house. Then that's Nick's cousin. So, and I'm talking about maybe, like I met Jesse in 1 week, and then 3 weeks later I met Nick. But that is, that's how you meet people kind of in a way where
Right.
That's the way the relationship. So Jesse was like, for me, and I'll just speak for me, he was like the Saved by the Bell Zach. Like he had the wave thing. It was 90210. All the girls. It felt like he was a star,
Mm-hmm.
kind of in that era. He was a pitcher. Nick was as well, but Nick I related with more because Nick was getting, like, he was being bullied. He was getting in fights. We were dealing with kind of the same context, but
Sure.
he wasn't a coward. He was someone that was like, he was smart. Like, he's not going to fight against other people. And that's the energy you were dealing with back then. But at the same time, like, he wasn't going to, like, once he seen you, there was going to be a problem. So, like, as we formed, and I don't even think we knew it at that time, but we kind of together two become stronger than one. And we grew. Like our neighborhood, there's other people, Mike Rudy. I mean, I don't want to get into put people's stuff, but there's people where we grew our own little protection in our neighborhood against the other neighborhoods. And there's a lot of people that sold each other out. So there's other communities outside of our neighborhood that would pressure people within our friendship to, like, where's this dude? I'm looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, and like there's people that stayed loyal to the neighborhood, and there's people that didn't. And Nick is one of the ones that always stayed loyal. So I have to give that context,
Okay.
because it's so many battles that I can't explain in this time that he's shown me who he is when things are rough.
Mm-hmm.
And he has always been on my side in those times.
And just for clarification, just contextually, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you were saying like you have kind of like this connection within the neighborhood, right? And you have this loyalty. This is within the context of being like a teenager, or a young adult. Like, how would you want to describe it?
Teenagers. So, my recollection of how we met is a little different than his. And allow me to jog your memory. When we were younger, there was we used to pants each other, right? As like it was a funny thing to do. It was a joke, You'd run up and pants somebody at the bus stop or whatever. So his older sister Aisha, who was absolutely gorgeous at the time, she was like one of the prettiest girls in the school, super popular, wicked cool. Me and her were friends. We were in the same grade together. She pantsed me at the bus stop.
Oh, that sucks.
So we got to school, and I pantsed her getting off the bus.
Oh.
Dennis heard about it, and we fought in out back of the school. First thing in the morning, like 7:00 in the morning, the next day. We both got brought down to the principal's office. He had a bloody lip. I had a black eye, and the principal rolled up on us. And I say rolled up, he was in a wheelchair, Mr. McNamara.
Okay.
And he was an old school guy. He goes, I want to know which one of you two started the fight. Me and him are sitting right next to each other. We said, what fight? He said, no, you guys got into a fight. I want to know who started it. We both said, we didn't get into a fight. He tapped us both. You're good boys. Get out of here. And we left. And we became boys after that. So that's my recollection of how we met and how we became friends. And a lot of my friends, and a lot of Dennis's friends, we fought. We fought each other. That was the culture that we grew up in the 90s. You fought somebody, and then after you fought them, you were either best friends or you became enemies. We lived, I could throw a rock to his house from mine. So we had to become friends because we couldn't just walk around beating each other up every day.
Yeah.
And his sister and my cousin had a lot to do with he and I. We kind of walked out of the office laughing like, oh man, we just got away with one. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's how we became boys. So from there on out, it was kind of, I knew that he could fight and he knew that I could fight. And I was,
we missed each other though, like during our early years.
Yeah, this was 5th and 6th grade.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So the other thing I do want to say is what's interesting to me as you're bringing that up is like in my mind, I inherited him as a friend, even though to his point, like what he's talking about is when me and him formed our own relationship.
Right.
But I felt connected to him before because of Jesse. You get what I'm saying? Like the minute, like we weren't chilling, but like his mother and his mother clearly, like if you're Jesse,
right,
when we would have to shovel or when we would have to do something, you just got sent.
Right.
So to his point, like we didn't have a friendship until he's talking about.
Right.
But we had been in the same
circles.
That familiarity, like you knew each other. So that's why, like, okay, so that makes more sense. So like when you were in the office there, that's why it was easier for you to be like, no, we were.
Well, he's right. Like we started directly communicating after that. But and the reason I'm highlighting this is two sides of the same situation, right? In my mind, and this has always been a problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like people that I'm with, like if I meet someone that he introduces to me, I extend almost the same courtesy, whether that person knows it or not, to them. But I never communicate it, so that person doesn't know.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So the person is just kind of like, dude, like you might be friendly with me, but I never knew that, and that's a mistake I made. So I just wanted to put that.
Yeah, and to your point, I feel like we've all made that mistake of assuming that because the friend of my friend is my friend is how we feel a lot of the time. And some people don't feel that way. See, I was a little different where I would give you respect, but I wouldn't give you my friendship. I would show up for you if you were associated with my associates. I would show up for you whether I knew you or not. But that was based on my own principle, right? That was based on the fact that I couldn't let it slide. That wasn't so much for the other person as it was for me. If that's like, not to sound selfish, but my own reputation dictated that I had to do that.
Right.
I got it also to a pin in. So the story about my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister previously to that had got jumped coming from, if you went to Constantino, we used to walk up the back trail towards the tower.
Okay.
And it was kind of a wooden path.
Yeah.
My sister hung around some females from High Street. And on the way back, because like he said, she was kind of attractive to a lot of the guys. One of the more affluent Spanish guys liked her.
Mm-hmm.
This caused a rift within what I would consider a crew. And I don't want to put names out there because that's their story to tell.
Sure.
But anyways, they jumped my sister. I think I was there. I think I was there. And I didn't do anything. So the shame that hit me after that, because like the girls were there, but they were surrounded by all these Spanish dudes.
Yeah.
And not like that created such a problem for me.
Yeah.
Because as that narrating went on, it's like, damn, he won't even fight for his sister. This dude's a coward. If I was to put a pin in that and even go back forward, my sister used to break up my mother and my father when my father was beating my mother, and I wouldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this steamrolling shame that really gave life to the fighter that I became.
And I can attest to that as well. I also was in not a similar situation, but a situation where I didn't stand up on my own 2 feet when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And the shame that I felt at that time made it so that it fueled the violence inside of me. I became a violent person, not because I was a violent person, but I became a violent person because of my own fear, the fear of that feeling that shame ever again.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of feeling like other people were looking at me like I was a coward, or and also there was a program that came on. I don't know if you guys recall, A&E. It was a channel, a TV station.
Arts and Entertainment.
Arts and Entertainment. When I was a kid, I had 3 stations on my TV, and one of them was A&E.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to do biographies. They did a biography on Lucky Luciano. I was a kid, I was watching it, and one of the things I heard him say was, don't start a problem, but if there is a problem, make sure that you make an example so that other people don't ever want to start a problem with you again. And I took that to heart. So I overreacted many times. Went way further than I ever needed to go. And unfortunately, Dennis was the same way. And that formed our relationship because we weren't allowed at parties. We didn't get invited to parties. We didn't get invited to the keg party at the Pipe. We didn't get invited to house parties not because we would start a problem, but because if a problem arose, we were so quick to react.
Mm-hmm.
And go so far overboard that people didn't want us around. So it became me and him.
Gotcha. So I'm going to sort of circle back. So actually, you know what? Maybe I don't need any further context, because I did ask originally, like, well, how did you guys end up fighting? But now I have a different question in mind, and this is a much tougher question. Mm-hmm. Because you guys were talking about how you kind of grew up to be at a point where you need to fight to kind of overcome the shame. So why would you guys inflict shame on each other?
Why would we?
and I'm wording it that way because fighting
Back then, or
I'm talking about to the point where you guys actually fought each other, because that's essentially what you're doing, right? Like, you're fighting to overcome shame. So then why would you inflict shame on each other? You see what I'm going to see how I got into that point?
So for me, I didn't know. So I'm retrospecting and looking back at the younger self. I think back then I
Right.
definitely did not have the mentality I have now.
Yes.
I would just react when I couldn't manage it anymore.
Yeah.
So I tried to, and the other thing is, like, right now we're highlighting a specific issue,
Yes.
which is our relationship, what meant a lot. But in the priority of my life back then, this wasn't priority because, like, when you're a kid, I think your mom, right? The school, which is attached to your mom, and ultimately hormones. Like, I don't know about you, but everything back then, I was trying to get with the hot girl. and that was like the carrot. And I knew what I wanted, but I could never get there because it was never possible. And then the other thing is, I don't want to create this context where, like, the reason our relationship has always been great is because we both cared about it.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? But
Yes.
the time, like, from 14 on, I was only out in the fall for maybe 3 months, 3 to 4 months. And that's the context of our relationship. So, like, when I was free or when he was free, we were together all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is, there are a lot of times where we were not free.
No.
Now, once we got older, once we got older and we weren't incarcerated,
Yeah.
yes, our bond from 06 on, when we didn't have the systems in our pathway,
Mm-hmm.
we
I think from I want to say 17 to about 24 or 25.
I was 26. I came out.
26. So I was 20. So if you were 26, I was 27. So from 17 to about 27, our level of communication was him calling home from prison and me talking to him when he was home, or me calling home from prison and talking to him while he was home, and being like, "Oh, I can't wait to come home so we can chill." And then, undoubtedly, a couple of months before I was due to come home, he would get locked up, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, your original question about why we would shame each other,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a shame for two men to fight. It was a shame for two men not to fight.
Right.
So the minute I pantsed his sister in front of everybody out front of the school,
Yeah.
I expected him to come fight me. I didn't do it at that time with the intent of invoking his anger.
Right.
But the minute I did it, I was like, "Oh man, me and Daryl has no choice but to make an example of me."
Right.
So the minute I saw him come around the building, and I was out back of the school, I knew immediately that we were fighting. There was no conversation, there was no context, there was no, "Oh, when I see you," none of that. It was the minute I saw him come around the building, I immediately knew that we weren't. He wasn't coming to have a conversation with me.
Right.
He was coming to fight me, and I would have looked at him differently if he hadn't. It was his duty to come and fight me,
Right.
just as it was my duty to stand there and allow him that process.
Yeah.
So if you're not from it, it's hard to understand it.
Yeah. No. I actually get it. So I actually find it kind of interesting, right? Because you're hearing his perspective of what happened then,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and correct me if I'm wrong, because as I understood, this is like you actually fighting, possibly for the first time.
No.
Or is
so
this-
that's the
okay.
difficulty. Like, where I talked about people betraying,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I and Nick, it just made sense that me and him fought.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we lived in a gladiator time where that was the spectacle.
Yeah.
I fought Greg Morales, but the difference was Greg Morales was beloved and played football. So when I fought Greg Morales, I got sent back to DYS. So the point of when he's saying, and it wasn't Greg's fault, like, Greg didn't tell on me, it's just the thugs are trying to beat on the football star, right? That narrative of BS. And then like later, like I got into another fight and I ran, but like I wasn't like eventually I was running from a system that people didn't know. And it became like you know, you could get your stripes off of getting a fight. If you were new to the school and unknown, the quickest way to get known was to kind of fight
Yeah.
and think about that moniker, right? Like if you want to be known, go to the biggest person and hit them and everyone know you're serious. Unfortunately, I was one of the taller kids in my class.
Yeah.
But I was in a legal situation where, like, to his point, it took me a long time to get to that Lucky Luciano point because I just wanted to do music and get girls.
Right.
Like I really didn't want to be beefing.
Right. So that's also interesting. And obviously, Nick, you understand that kind of the system that he's talking about, despite
Absolutely.
the fact you have different backgrounds. But then I think that's actually another important point. I don't know who this Greg individual was, but we'll just know him as like the football star, right? Like this.
He's my brother now. Like Greg, his mother is in my church, but I wouldn't use his name if I didn't think our relationship was mad tight.
Yeah, no, okay, but
And he got me wherever Greg is. He got me with that fight. He hit me with a solid shot, and I was like, fight over.
Yeah. Well, so what I thought was interesting about it, because you now introduced the idea of a system, right? And this individual, because of, I guess, where he was in life at that moment, was kind of, I don't want to say above, but like preferred. Because we all kind of exist in a system, right? We can't escape
No one
that.
will argue that point.
But he was kind of preferred, and that sort of, I don't know if it sent you spiraling in one direction or it was just added on to whatever's happening before. But you both went through some things, and then you both came out, sounds like in your late 20s, and then you both decide, well, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm saying the word decide, maybe it's not the right word, but you started going on a path towards, this is what I'm going to try to do to basically grow as an adult. And since then, you both have had success or having success, right?
Yeah, it was an evolution more than a decision.
Okay, better.
And I think that comes along with just growing older, which goes back to the point that is always made on this show, is that the level of violence between the ages of 14 and 22, you guys say, I go a little further as to like 25, even as close to 27.
Yeah.
But I know the statistics would match up with that 14 to 22 era.
Mm-hmm.
So as you grow out of that age and you start to evolve as a human being, and you start to realize like this is not the answer to everything.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the system goes, I want to make a point, and I don't mean for it to come off crazy. I just want to make a point because of the temperature of where we live now in comparison to the temperature where we grew up. The system back then, and I'm only speaking to Haverhill, I could probably only speak to Constantino or even in our neighborhood. The system wasn't divided in black, white, and Spanish. It was divided in, did you play sports? Were you scholastic? Or were you a problem? Were you a troublemaker? Were you a thug?
Right.
And that wasn't again, it wasn't a black, white, or Spanish thing, right? So when Daryl and I got into a fight, that was a couple of thugs beating each other up. We got a tap on the leg, go back to class. And he got into a fight with Mousy. It was, you're out of here, buddy, because now you're crossing a boundary, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay if you thugs want to beat each other up. It's a whole nother ball game when you're bringing your thug stuff into this area. Yep. You're not allowed in this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about getting context and background on me, that's the context in the background. Is that I was put in a class of lesser than, but I also did play sports, and I was pretty good at it. But because of my extracurricular activities, if you will, I wasn't put in that classification. I was put in the classification where I rightfully belonged at the time, if we're being honest.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just wanted to, when we're talking about system, that was the system, from my perspective anyway. I don't know. I don't want to speak to you. Or,
For me, it was different just because of the consequence and the like. My grandfather, who I love dearly, and he's a magnificent man. He's taken everybody into his house you could possibly think of. But during the time, and he fought his construct, so I want to give him credit. I just want to point out, like, my father, who was a African American man from Lowell, like, my grandfather never got him a job trucking. And he tried from his position to help him. And my grandfather, if he was here, would tell you that he noticed when Dennis, I'm a junior, when Dennis would apply for a job on the phone,
Yep.
they would be like, yeah, come down. But then when my father would go down there, he would come back without a job. So that's the way my grandfather describes it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm just trying to say is the context that I grew up in, it was different in the sense where I felt like because of my blackness, there was a ceiling. And it would poke itself out
Right.
when necessary, not all the time. But I never shared that with my friends. Like I didn't share that with Nick until, I don't know, when George Floyd and all this stuff was
probably
happening.
6 or 7 years ago. Yeah.
7 years ago. And I started explaining to him, like, when I would be in Market Basket and I'd be with my grandparents and the cashier would be like, hey, can you step back? Thinking I'm like too close to no, that's my grandmother. So these are the areas where, like, I knew I was different.
Yeah.
Right. And then I had to figure out how to navigate. And I think when people, to the credit, because I don't want to paint Haverhill out to be like all these racism, I think it's people that weren't experienced in diversity.
Yeah.
So it was just people kind of like, oh, I'm sorry. And they would feel a sense of shame for projecting that.
Sure.
But my point is the consequences for me became such where I became crazy. Like I became a Frankenstein. And I think there's other people that have become Frankensteins, and Nick as well in his situation.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out, but I do want to say, because our generation grew up closer,
Mm-hmm.
like it did a lot to further connections than when I was born. And I see that through my children. Like my children, they're still dealing with microaggressions. They're still dealing with different stuff that pops up.
Mm-hmm.
But they're able to still be like, to Nick's point, and even me, like I didn't want to believe that race was a problem. I wanted to believe that me, Nick, and Jesse, and all of us, our love for one another could transform our community. But if I'm being honest, that's just not. It's not completely honest. It's not.
It's not honest, and you're not the only one of my friends that never discussed with me the level of racism that you experienced. And I'm not going to name people's names, but there was a very close friend of mine, and he and I had a discussion, and I asked him just blatantly. I was like, "Bro, I was just talking to Dennis, and he was talking about, people used to call him the N-word and stuff like that. Like, not I used to say that too, but not with a hard R, right?
Yeah.
But like the hard R, and I couldn't fathom it. I was just like, nah, dude, no way. And he's like, yeah, like that was my experience. And I was like, dude, I found it so hard to swallow that, because it broke my heart to hear that he heard that, and that people would say that.
Yeah.
Because I thought we were past it, right? From how I grew up, I thought we were past it. I thought racism was old. I thought it was history,
Right.
like that we learned in school. I didn't know it was still happening. So I had a discussion with my friend, and he said, I asked him straight out, dude, like, did you ever get called the N-word, like, growing up? Like, Like, really?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, it used to happen all the time. I just never paid attention to it because I didn't care. It wasn't like a thing for me. But yeah. And I was like, really? Like, that's wild. I was like, and you never like said nothing? He's like, no, I never said nothing because it didn't matter to me. Right. And I don't think that it didn't matter to him. I just think that he was different than we. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The kid that I'm talking about, and I'll tell you off air who I'm talking about.
So I kind of want to jump in there. I actually get that sentiment a lot, right? Like I wouldn't go around and telling like, my white friends, hey, people used to call me the N-word, the hard R, it just wouldn't happen. And it's not because I didn't care. And I think, Dennis, you might know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. I know other people won't care. And that's the tougher part. It's like, there's no point in me complaining if, for example, because we talk about systems, for example, right? The school administration, like you tell them like, oh yeah, that's unfortunate. They shouldn't have said that. Let's have a conversation with the other person who said it. If they even believe that part, because I've had that issue. But like I remember there's a situation in high school. This one kid just all of a sudden started doing that. I didn't even really know him. It's actually kind of that situation of it's a friend of a friend. We were all part of the circle, but I wasn't really that close with him. And all of a sudden he just started doing it for, I mean, I guess for today you would call him for likes, right? But back then he was doing it to get that little quick laugh within the group. And I was just like so disturbed by it because like, maybe a one-off, whatever, on the bus, whatever. I'm not going to say anything, but you constantly keep doing it. No, I had to say something. So I remember one time I told my mom about it. My mom's Jamaican, and she kind of flipped out. So she's like, she told me, you need to go talk to the guidance counselor. She wasn't doing it for me anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was in high school. So then I told the guidance counselor, and honestly, I think the guidance counselor didn't care because he didn't seem to really react at the moment. But then he actually did take it up. He's like, I talked to the other kid. It's not going to happen anymore. And the other kid came up to me later on. He was just like, I didn't know it bothered you that much. I'm like, of course it bothered me. You call me a slur. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that's super offensive. And after that, it did die down. But I would say probably, I don't know, maybe like early 2010s, right? Like when Obama got elected, I think a lot of us kind of felt, oh yeah, we're finally over it. We elected a black man, right? But I don't know, I'm always cynical. So I was like, of course the world hasn't changed that much. But I think as adults, we're smart enough not to go around and start calling people slurs for the most part, right? Maybe behind closed doors it happens, with small groups of people, but most people aren't like that. But I think the reality for me came in, there's two separate times actually within my kid's current school system. So a mutual friend of ours, I don't want to name her because very, very close mutual friend.
We're all keeping the names out.
Yeah. I found out she lived in Atkinson.
Okay.
And she has a daughter. And she told me that, people were using slurs. And they had a diversity committee within our school district. I was like, oh, okay, that's good. They're trying to be proactive about it. And there was actually teachers who truly cared about it. And unfortunately, there was a whole thing that was happening where our school district was separating from another school. And I didn't really understand what was going on at the time because I literally just moved to my community at that time. And unfortunately, the diversity committee went away. It's like they stopped caring about it. And then I end up, unfortunately, another mutual friend who was a mutual friend of that other mutual friend, she has an adopted black son. And he is also a little bit delayed. And there was a group of kids on the bus that would harass him about not only being black, but they called him, the N-word. And they also made fun of his disability. And I'll be honest, at that point, I was just like, oh, I'm not surprised. Look where we are, right? There's like, you'd be lucky if you come across another person of color within 100 students or whatever. Which it's changing now because I know you know this because we live in the same school district. There's more people of color moving in, and that's a whole other thing of like the economics of the world forcing people up north. But then the one that really pissed me off, it happened to my own son. Mm. He was in middle school, and he was on the bus, and I don't know how long it's been happening because my son actually didn't feel like doing anything. And then one day I was just like, why are you acting like you're so like basically kind of like detached when he came home. And he's like, they're calling me names. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, he's calling me all these slurs. They're calling me N-word. I'm like, you serious? I'm like, how long is this going on? Because it was May at that point. He goes, I don't know. I'm like, why didn't you tell anyone? He's like, well, I didn't think anyone would do anything about it. So I knew the principal of the school. He's a great guy, and I told him about it, and he was upset. He's a white guy. He's upset. He's about our age. He's just like, we're not going to tolerate. I'm going to talk to him. He did talk to the student. They took care of it. My son didn't have any problems since then, or at least not that I'm aware of, because now he's a junior. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, I think there is. I think it's important, like for someone like yourself, Nick, to be in a community with people of color to understand, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with them. I can get along with them. And it's unimaginable to think about certain like negative things about these people, because it's like, no, of course, he's my brother. Like, we live next door. Like, we do all these things together. But I think there's people out there who exist. Not only they're not around people of color or other diverse groups like, LGBTQIA, whatever, or trans people, right? They're not around those people, and they're not actively even trying to. Like, they're making an effort not to be around those people, and then they harbor those negative thoughts. I don't know. I mean,
Do we want to do a time check? Where are we at with the time? Because I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
want to. Because I do have a couple thoughts, but I don't want to.
we have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, great. So I just wanted to put out two things.
Mhm.
One, this is why I work. So the last 20 years since I got out 2006, I did a little something, and then everyone knows I've worked with young people. Even when I stopped working with young people are like, he works with young people.
Yeah.
But the reason why I work with young people is because, to your point, I feel like a lot of the systems guard parents. So like issue happens in the school, one kid calls the other kid a name.
Mhm.
We all know that it's kind of loosely speaking to the culture of a home, right? And I
Mhm.
think other teachers, that because we all have relationships, right? So someone could say an off-color remark or an offensive remark, and I think if you have a friend in the school system, they're going to try to shield you in some regards and solve the problem in their mindset for the best of the ability.
Mhm.
But that sometimes makes the young people feel like you're not doing nothing, because this young people have their own culture. So the way you really address issues with young culture is bringing them together. Like, who cares what your father thinks? Who cares what the teacher thinks? Do you guys know that the way you're treating each other is wrong?
Right.
So that's what I've done, and I've had so much impact, because normally, like us, it's a different harm. It's something else, and that was just the weapon of choice, was to use a derogatory slur,
Mhm.
because it's something that they know is going to hurt people. It's going to cause pain to this individual.
Right.
So that's something, and I'm not like washing away all of the horribleness of stuff, but my mindset has always been impact. The difficulty for me has been what I kind of organically went over, was the construct I grew up with was, when things got to a certain level, you address them with violence.
Hmm.
But when I was called racial stuff, to address it with violence only hurt me.
Hmm.
And that was very unfair and hypocritical of the culture. Do you get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if someone bangs my girl, beat his ass. If someone, I don't want to say, you get what I'm saying? If someone
Yeah.
does something, you address it with violence. But then when it comes to, someone showing stuff like I said, I go to the store, someone makes a biased thing, I'm supposed to be graceful and forgiving. So that mixed message for me, I was able to go a lot of my life just enduring,
Right.
until, believe it or not, the white side of me felt obligated, like the privileged side of me,
Mhm.
because like I grew up black, but I grew up black in Haverhill. So a lot of people don't understand that black in Haverhill is not black in Worcester. It's not black in Boston. It's not black in Chicago. It's not black. Like, I still have to go to those communities
Mhm.
and be vetted to see if I'm a part of that community.
Right.
And there are certain people in that community that, because they're going to look at the ghetto of Haverhill as the rich portions of their city. So because I didn't go through the extremes of what they think their culture is, 50 kids jumping you instead of 10. You get what I'm saying? It's the trauma Olympics. I'm not valid in those communities. But for people that don't know, they think, well, you're black, you can go anywhere, and you're a gangster over here, so you're a gangster everywhere. That's just not the way it works. That's why I went to the prison system and had to literally, the reason I'm known so well is because of all of the stuff I had to do in the prison system and in the streets of those communities, trying to validate myself through violence, which eventually, to his point, when I got old enough, I said, this is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? And I completely walked away. But my whole point is, a lot of people would never have the experience to understand the nuance of what I just shared. Like how like it's different. And then like another thing that I did, I was sharing with Nick off air about this point, but like, because I knew all of the black individuals from the state system in the ghettos, I ignorantly thought that meant those are the black people from Boston, which clearly, right, there's a larger group of people that went to school and became law enforcement, became judges and all that stuff. So I myself, growing up out here, have had to go through, understanding my black identity. And this is why I confuse people when I say I grew up as a white child. Because, all of my influence was seated in white community. Most of the black people I got to know outside of my father, and he was dealing with substance abuse, and I was really even segregated from him and that family until I was dropped off in Lowell. But my experiences until I got older and until now, even now, I think like the last 5 to 7 years, I've really got to broaden experiential identity of the black, what is it called? Diaspora?
Diaspora. Yeah.
Diaspora. I don't know how
So, Nick, I also I want you to be part of this conversation too. So, obviously, you're hearing we're having different experiences, but you actually you grew up in a similar neighborhood, or you grew up in the same neighborhood as him. We live in a similar community now, but are you getting the same experience? Or are you getting a completely different experience? Like, what are you seeing?
So, growing up as a younger person in the neighborhood that we grew up in, as I shared earlier, I didn't realize that there was racism. I never in a million years thought that anyone ever called him outside of his name, like that, and I've already shared that. As far as in our school district and things like that, I've had similar experiences, and honestly, like, I've heard kids, say that word and had to step in and be like, hey, because now not only do I have friends, I have family. You know what I mean? I have so many family members that are Spanish and black, and so even if I didn't have friends and family that were black and Spanish, I still wouldn't approve of calling somebody out their name like that.
Can I ask what it's like for you though? Because like, what I'm saying is this, like, so I'm half white, I'm half Irish. There's certain people that I want to say because of their experiences, they're unreachable. But it's like I'm tied to two different people that are never, like, do you have the experience where like in one space, you're with one space that thinks a completely different way than another space you're dealing with, and you feel tortured?
Absolutely. I mean, I have people that meet me for the first time and think that it's hilarious to tell me a racist joke, and I don't think that's funny. I do think racist jokes are funny. I don't think racist jokes coming from racist people is funny.
Okay.
Right? Racist jokes are hilarious.
Yeah,
right?
You're a fan of comedy.
Fan of comedy, done properly, right? Bill Burr, hilarious. He tells jokes about black, white, Spanish. He does the whole, I never knew I was ashy, right? Like all that stuff. That's hilarious. That's comedy. When someone just meets me for the first time and goes, "Oh yeah, let me tell you this," and starts, I'm like, wow, do I look like, do I come across as somebody that you can tell that joke to?
So you're identifying someone kind of, you think, putting out a probe to see where you stand on race?
I think that it's,
Hold on, I'm just grabbing the water.
I think that it's an uncomfortable way that some people let you know where they stand.
Okay.
And it's also like, have you ever had somebody come up and tell you something that somebody told them about you, and you question, why was that person so comfortable telling you that about me?
Yes.
Like, I thought our relationship was clearer than that. That somebody wouldn't even think about coming up and having that conversation with you about me. Like, I appreciate that you're telling me about it, but the fact that what made that person so comfortable to tell you that, you know what I'm saying? What were you saying to make them think that they could say that?
Right.
That's how I think, right? Because we grew up in an era where people will stab you in your back. You had to pay attention to every move you made, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would analyze those things. So I question, why is it that somebody would think that they can come up and just tell me that joke? What about me is projecting to you that you think that I would find that amusing?
I was about to say, what is the joke, but I'm not going to.
Well,
our relationship, but we got to be in podcast.
I get what you're saying, and we're kind of like nearing the end here. We probably have about like 5 minutes, but like I get what you're saying, because it also actually relates to the type of comedy, right? Like a good comedy where they may have like racist jokes or offensive jokes. A good one is like everyone who's listening to that joke is kind of part of the conversation. They understand the context to it. It's not just trying to be offensive. It's offensive, but it's also ridiculous, and everyone gets that. Like we'll say it's based on the stereotype. It's not true, right? It's like it's told within a story, and you understand from that story, it's hilarious.
Right.
And people get liberty if they've been doing an art form for a while, I think. Like if you've been in comedy for 10 years,
right?
Clearly you're trying out a joke and you could cross a line. I'm saying for me.
And you're right about that too. Like the people who follow that comedy, they understand. Like I know for a fact there are comedians who exist out there, and I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's like I find this comedy completely offensive. Their whole shtick is to be offensive.
Right.
They go straight to being offensive. It doesn't matter what they'll destroy everyone.
Yeah.
And then they think that's funny. Like that's the punchline.
I kind of am drawn to, like, there's some people that I definitely would be lying if I said I'll never repost their stuff because of the work I do, but they're brilliant, like with that form of art.
Right, the people who set it up and you're like, oh, I get it. Like you went from here to here and it took you 5 minutes, but once you got there, it was perfect. It's like
I can't
chef's
help but
kiss,
think of Kramer. Remember when Kramer lost it? He had like a heckler.
Yeah.
I kind of remember that.
Like just snapped.
Yeah.
I felt bad because on one end, clearly there's a deep-seated hatred that you could feel the hatred, but at the same time, like like it was also a fearless, like, let me hurt you. You know what I'm saying? So that was like a real funky intersection for me.
Yeah.
Because you were like, damn, he crossed the line, but at the same time being understanding art and understanding like anything that you're doing for a long time that you could just burnout is real. Burnout is a real thing. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. But
I think that so there's been a lot of people that I've met that have been introduced to a culture through me that they never would have been introduced to before. There's people that have met me that have a different point of view because of me, right? Because of my point of view. And the fact that I'm respected in communities. So they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I didn't realize that. So that's why I want to be here right now, is because I know that I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I'm not trying to change your mind about how you feel about Donald Trump, because I don't care. Right? I'm trying to show people that there's value to people like me sitting down in a room like this with the work that you guys are doing and trying to bridge a gap, right? I have the ability to help bridge a gap. Just like you have the ability to help bridge a gap, and you have the ability to help bridge a gap, right?
Mhm.
If we can't sit in a room together, us, and have some very difficult conversations, which this one wasn't. This was a very easy conversation for us, right?
Mhm.
But to have some really difficult conversations and still go for a beer afterwards, and not have everything that we do go back to that, right? Like, you have to be able to shut it off.
Right.
When I was growing up in my school, I didn't know if one of my teachers was homosexual. I didn't know if one of my teachers was Democrat or Republican. I didn't know. I didn't know if they owned a house or rented an apartment. I didn't know. I didn't know much of anything about them, other than that they were my school teacher, and that they were trying to get me to open my mind up to be able to formulate my own thoughts and my own opinions. So, and one of the problems that I believe is going on right now in this country is that in our school systems, we're forcing the kids know now. The kids know today if their teacher's a Democrat or Republican, because they're stating their opinions, and they're trying to get. And I'm not talking about all. I'm just saying some more than I think is acceptable are. And on both sides of the coin. I'm not just talking about Democrats. I'm talking about both Democrats.
This is going to be a great lead to our next show, but
Yes.
Democrats and Republicans both,
Mhm.
Trying to shove their opinions down young people's throats, and getting them to lean one way or another based on their opinion. When we were growing up, that wasn't the case. We were put in debates, and told to argue a point. Sometimes we were handed a point that we didn't agree with, and we were told to argue that point from a devil's advocate side, so that you could get an understanding of where other people were coming from.
I think the thing that we know just from doing like the dialogue that you just opened,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good cliffhanger.
Yeah,
Because it's something that's going to take a whole show to unpack.
absolutely.
So like next time you're here, we have a guest next week.
Yep.
And then we will schedule you, and Nick will be back, and we'll continue the conversation.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Thanks, guys.